A Republican bill requiring Wisconsin sheriffs to aid ICE or risk losing their funding passed the Assembly today. The bill would require sheriff's offices to verify the citizenship status of people who they've detained for a felony. If they can't verify the status, they would have to alert the Department of Homeland Security. If the sheriffs don't comply with the bill, their counties could lose 15% of state aid. In Dane County, for example, that loss would amount to more than $1 million.
Don't let the cartels, the NGOs, and the illegal migrants ruin it for the legal immigrants we help. Wisconsin sheriffs should follow our law. Please vote green.
After years of asking local communities to do more with less, it is unacceptable to threaten those vital funds for a political stunt.
The bill passed 51-43 with Democrats voting against it. It now heads to the state Senate. But even if it passes there, Democratic Governor Tony Evers has already indicated he would veto the bill.